All right, team, we are back in the Fireside PM podcast, and I have Shannon Anderson from Madrona Ventures joining the show. Shannon had an amazing LinkedIn post that really caught my eye, and it was like, are we like in a retro state of recruiting? LinkedIn job postings are broke AF. I think that was the term that I thought was most humorous to me. I was like, yeah, it's a weird situation out there. And then like remote versus in person. So welcome to the show, Shannon. How are you today?
I'm great, Tom. It's always fun talking with you. And I think you and I have known each other for about 20 years when
Yeah.
you had a startup, and I think I was helping you recruit for your
Yeah.
startup, if I remember. Is that right?
Way back in the day when in one of my startups in Seattle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for having me on the show. I'm happy to. I don't even remember. Let's see, how long ago was that post that kind of triggered us having this conversation, and how much has changed since that? Maybe it was 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that.
So we'll talk about what's true today, I reckon.
Yeah, that
All right.
sounds like a plan. So I mean, maybe we could just start with what was the motivation for doing that post? Because I sense that there was a little bit of like, hey guys, like the world's changing really fast, and there's a lot of things that aren't working that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it was 4 weeks ago. I'm gonna put it up on the screen so people can see it too.
Okay. Yeah. I think you know I think that the thing that really started getting on my nerves with that triggered that post was all of the fake candidates that are starting to infiltrate the recruiting process, and how many people I talk to in my profession that have been doing this their entire careers, who are getting fooled by candidates that are just avatars or AI generated, or some other version of fake candidate. And this really got me to thinking that everything that we learned about remote working and remote interviewing and hiring during COVID was amazing. And it actually was a sea change in how we work and will always impact the future. But what we're dealing with now is not what we were dealing with back in 2020 or whatever, when we were dealing with COVID. We've got all of this AI power in the hands of just regular people, in hands of foreign countries that are just at breakneck speed, moving faster than the people that are on the receiving end, or in my case, like I'm a recruiter. I can't keep up with the fact that somebody's built some technology that outsmarted the phone screen that I had yesterday, or the coding test that I had 2 days ago. And so there's all this sort of like, whatever we think is state of the art is obsolete by the next day. And so I'm just seeing everybody that I know talk about this and experience this. So that's what got me thinking. Remote hiring is not the future. I just don't think that we're going to be able to do away with people coming on site, at least to meet face to face without a screen between them, to validate you're human, I'm human, you are who you say you are. And even that, there's going to be a lot of problems. And we can talk about some stuff I read yesterday about North Korea kind of infiltrating organizations. Yeah, it's crazy. So that's it. That's
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
It's kind of getting pissed off.
I had a surprising experience. I think it was early 24.
Okay.
And I was doing some research on a potential startup idea.
Okay.
And I did a post on LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, if anybody's open to giving feedback on this topic, like, let me know. And I've got a survey, or I'll interview you, and I'll hook you up with like a Amazon gift card or something like that.
Yeah.
And instantly there were all of these Calendly bookings, because I put my Calendly link up there. And I was like, oh wow, okay, this is great. And then when I looked at I think I had some fields where I said, hey, give me your LinkedIn profile. And many of them were like very sus looking LinkedIn profiles. And then, so I didn't book time with them. And then the ones where they did look legitimate, when I actually jumped on the Zoom to conduct the interview, I was like, this person is not the person that their LinkedIn profile said. And I
Yeah.
was pretty sure they were not in the United States. They were in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was amazed at how fast they were, because I thought, okay, well, if I make people fill out a form, like the bots aren't going to do that. But yeah, it's incredible. What do you think is like, for me, the motivation is I think they were trying to get the Amazon gift card. But for you,
Yeah.
like, why would they have a fake applicant? Like, what's in it for them if you posted
Well,
it?
I don't know the answer to that, Tom. I imagine there's a lot of different answers to that depending on who's doing the faking. But I was just reading this yesterday. I think it was Cisco had either experienced this problem or they were working with customers that are having this problem on the security issues. But I think it was Cisco. Don't quote me on that. Actually, you are quoting me on that. But North Korean operatives are applying for jobs using US based
Mm,
personas, posing as you, Tom,
mm,
going through the interview. Maybe you are even colluding, cooperating with these North Korean operatives, and you're lending them your credentials and your coding skills. And maybe you've got 500 LinkedIn profiles that are slightly different, and
mm,
you're showing up for each one of them with a slightly different you know AI altered version of your face, so you don't look like the same person over and over. Or maybe they're not even being that clever, or maybe they're not even being as clever as giving you 500 personas. You're just applying for different jobs at different companies, and so you've got 500 jobs in 500 different companies. So kind of like saying a little, I'm definitely making up part of this, but my interpretation is this is kind of how it could look.
mm.
You ask why. In this case, you pass the interview, you're onboarded, you've given your social security and all of that. And so now they can hack you. But that's the least interesting part of it. The interesting part of it for perhaps North Korea is that the company is going to send you a corporate laptop, and they're going to open
Mm.
up the code base to you, and you're the engineer, but there's really like a room full
Wow.
of engineers that are actually hacking through
Mm,
the code base or whatever it is they're trying to get access to. So as soon as you send this laptop to, Tom Lung in,
mm.
Palo Alto at his address, that actually isn't Tom Lung in Palo Alto. That's some dude or gal in North Korea with your corporate laptop. So
Yeah.
that to me is sort of the scariest version that I've heard so far. Give
Mm.
me a minute, I'll read something else and tell you something scarier, but that you could probably look that up. And of course, I don't know if that's real news or fake news, but it sounded like there were quite a few companies that have actually experienced that, but they're not reporting it broadly because there's a lot of liability for them
Yeah.
associated with that, right?
Okay,
Um,
so in that scenario, the applicant is kind of colluding with some other organization and
yeah,
saying, hey, look, I'll get a job at Acme, then I'm going to get corporate credentials and access. I'll provide it to you, and then you'll
yes,
compensate me for that.
yes. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
seems like you've got some sort of, I guess, yeah, these actual American citizens in
Mm,
this particular case. So anybody can look up that story, and if you remind me, I'll send you a link to it if I can find it again. But I read so much, I can't remember where I actually read that.
no
Probably
worries.
the information or something like that.
So when I saw your post, I was actually thinking that you were frustrated with legitimate but AI enhanced applications, like
Yep.
real people, but for whom their resume is completely reconstructed for the job description, including
Yes.
hallucinations and projects that may or may not exist. And that
Yeah.
was creating a problem for you to triage and see, like, okay, I got 1,000 applicants for this role. Who's really good? And all the applicants seem to have all the requisite skills on their resume, and it's as if it was written
Yeah.
dynamically.
Well, that is, that's a thread or an offshoot of the
Mhm.
same story. It's just a slightly different version of it. And some people that were commenting on the post were saying, well, are you saying that people that are using AI to help them with their interview or to help them with their, the take home project are
Mhm.
cheating? I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. If you're actually uh, making that known, if you're being
Mhm.
transparent about that, if you're divulging that. But if you're secretly using chat or whatever you've got to answer the questions and to do the code, and you're not saying so, and the test is intended not to see how great you are at leveraging, AI,
Mhm.
but how you think, then how are we going to get evidence that you can actually think your way through a problem and then apply AI? So it's a nuanced thing, but I use chat every single day. I use it all. I spent 3 hours this morning building an app that, isn't working very well, but I'm using it because I need to move faster and I think I can get my data better if I build something that is really smart. Like, we want to see people that are using AI to do their jobs, even if they're not very good at it yet.
Mhm.
But if somebody asks you, I want to understand how you think about things, and you've got ChatGPT over here giving you the answer, yeah, you might get the job, but you're going to fail in the job if that's not actually how you think.
Mhm.
So if we're not getting evidence of what somebody can actually do, and that's what we're looking for, then that's when it gets, that's a problem. And, you know,
Yeah. So you mentioned in the post that you're not a big fan of remote coding interviews, and that you're seeing companies go back to flying people in or having them come into the office and do it right in front of everybody. Is
yeah,
that becoming more and more common?
I think so. Yes. So far, what I'm seeing, and again, this every all of my experience is anecdotal, right? But I talk to lots of different companies, and I'm also talking to recruiting firms who are doing this at scale. And so, for example, yesterday I was talking to folks over at a firm called 20 AI, and they do these bulk hiring days where, leading up to the bulk hiring days, they're sourcing and reaching out to thousands of people at the top of the funnel and narrowing people down. And in many cases, they and other recruiters, companies, recruiting firms, whatever, that final interview has to be on site so that you can see face to face that this person is who they are. And that, yeah, so we're seeing more and more of that, not at the top of the funnel, but at the very end of the funnel. In fact, the truth is that if you put that barrier at the top of the funnel, you're going to get a 20 to 30% drop off. Like, you're
Hmm.
basically eliminating people immediately if you say you have to fly in for an interview even though you don't know anything about it. So it's the placement of that
Hmm.
on site that really, really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Shannon, your day to day is focused on helping Madrona's portfolio companies
Yes.
fill important roles. Is that how you engage with them?
Yeah. So I'm a talent scout. And so I have a t-shirt that sums up everything you need to know about me. Okay. This is what my team wears. It says, sorry, can't, scouting, bye. Okay. So this is all we do. We are
Yeah.
scouting for talent, helping our portfolio companies identify talent. And if we're not helping them identify that talent, we're showing them how to do it themselves, or
Mhm.
helping them leverage tools like SeekOut Spot, which is a combination agentic AI and human in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
That is incredible. I mentioned 20 AI, which is another firm that can help them do hiring in bulk. And in both of these cases, we're talking about a speed, quality, and cost trifecta that we have never seen before. Like you usually have to make a trade-off. You're going to go fast, but it's going to cost you a lot. You can go fast, get good quality, but it's going to cost you a lot. Or you can go fast, go cheap, but you're going to get bad quality. We're seeing that you don't have to make these trade-offs anymore. I don't think that will last. I
Mm-hmm.
think that this will all blow up a little bit, but right now that's been pretty cool. So we're always looking for ways for our portfolio companies to get an edge,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a never-ending battle to keep up with that. So yeah, that's what I do.
So it sounds like from the post and what you were just saying that telling your portcos to get a LinkedIn recruiter subscription and buy a bunch of in-mails is not the optimal strategy these days.
No. Okay, so here's some interesting things about LinkedIn. Um, they're basically just price gouging everybody
Mm-hmm.
because they are the only game in town, they think. And so that's pretty hard for for startup companies and for any company because it
Mm-hmm.
really starts to add up.
Yeah.
And the tools aren't that great. Now, there's a couple of things happening here. You've got other tools like Juicebox that does a 10 times, 100 times better job than LinkedIn of helping use AI to actually get the data that you want out of LinkedIn and out of other resources that tells you a lot more about a candidate than their title, where they're located geography wise. They can tell you, that particular tool can tell you when a person, like, I want to know what was the ARR of a company when this person worked there,
Hmm.
or conversely, I want to know all of the people that worked at X company during this range of revenue or this stage of funding or this stage of employee growth. And LinkedIn doesn't do that for you. You've also got products like SeekOut. You've got Find them.
Mm-hmm.
So there are other tools that do this much, much better. So that's one thing. You can get better ROI with different tools, yet still access that same information. The other thing, though, is I just saw a demo from the VP of product at LinkedIn. There's a gentleman by the name of, sorry, I've forgotten his name, Recruiting Brain Food. And Hong Lee at Recruiting Brain Food. He did an interview with this guy and got kind of a demo the other day. The first gentleman's first name is Harry. Can't remember his last name. Sorry. And he did a demo of LinkedIn AI agent or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of what I would say, not generally available, but maybe sort of in a beta where they do have it, shipped out and in production with certain clients. And it has the potential to do some of the things that I just talked about, like the Juicebox, Seek Out, Find
Mm-hmm.
them can do. It can also run interview recruiting process from end almost to end. So let me qualify that: the process, not the actual activity of interviewing people, but generating doing
Mm-hmm.
the job spec,
Yeah.
generating a short list, reaching out to people, engaging with them. The problem with this is that LinkedIn is going to create its own worst enemy because LinkedIn is already, people are saturated. They're saturated. People are starting to move out of LinkedIn. They're not looking at in-mails, and they're getting tired from all of these tools that I've mentioned already,
Yeah.
and recruiters that are just out there, reaching out to them, literally, Tom, 5 to 30 times. It takes somewhere in the range of 5 to 30 times repeated outreach to somebody before they respond.
Wow.
More like 10 to 30. a couple of years ago, it wasn't 10 to 30. It was more like 3 to 10.
Mm.
So it's taking a lot of pings and people getting tired of it. And recruiters are using these different tools. Once LinkedIn really kicks in and they're like, okay, everybody that's a LinkedIn recruiter, now you can blast your candidate audience like crazy. And here, we're going to help you write it. And we're going to help you with analytics about that. I think what's going to happen is candidates are going to move more and more away and start hiding more. And
Mm.
and so this is going to be, this problem is going to exacerbate. But yeah, LinkedIn Recruiter and these fees, it's pretty bad, and I just don't think that they can sustain that kind of lead. They think that they are with this AI agent, but I think eventually, I mean, people are not. There are great people that aren't on the platform. You can't find them on the platform. You have to find them some other way.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we might need LinkedIn to offer talent and agent to repel the recruiter emails or screen
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they'll sell on both sides like an arms dealer.
Well, the other thing is bless their bless their little hearts at LinkedIn. They also have like this candidate tool that can help candidates actually, using natural language,
Hmm.
say, hey, I want to be involved in the horticultural field.
Hmm.
And they can actually identify jobs that might be software engineering in a horticulture situation, or maybe a gardener. Like, let's think of all the different permutations of horticultural field that you as a candidate may have never thought of. Hey, I could actually apply my software engineering skills to this thing that it had never occurred to me before, or whatever. And that's cool. But once you identify a job, then LinkedIn is helping you rewrite your LinkedIn bio so
Hmm.
that it matches the job. And so now you're getting even more of this like artificial information that's going to create like this, everything's generic kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? And so which version of Tom am I talking to today? The guy that wants to be a horticulture something
Hmm.
or other, or the guy that's a product manager at a software
Hmm.
company? Like, which version of it? Well, it depends on the one that you wrote for that job. So it's cool, it's great, but I almost think it's going to be, it's going to turn inward and start uh, becoming a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
could see. I mean, it would be almost like if Gmail built a marketing newsletter tool for brands. It's sort of you may need to pick a side, and in LinkedIn's case, it definitely feels like they make all their money with the recruiters, and so
yeah,
if they're building agents to contact candidates even more. I mean, the unfortunate thing is there are plenty of people out there that are looking for new roles that are just don't have the skills and experience that are in high demand. They
yeah,
would love to be. They probably reply to you in the first email,
yes,
but
yes.
it's this small group. What is what's the hardest profile to fill these days that you're like, oh, everybody's looking for a blank and I cannot get them. There's just not enough of them, and I have
Hmm.
to turn over every rock.
Well, there's two different versions of that answer. One is the people that don't exist because the technology that a hiring manager wants does not exist, has not existed. So it kind of reminds me back in the early days of the iPhone. We're 2 years into the iPhone, and
They
companies
want
are
five
asking for
years of
some.
code
Yeah, we're
experience.
at 5 years of experience. It's like a classic example of this. So we're
Yeah.
seeing that already. We're seeing people. I want to hire a software engineer that has 5 years of experience and has built at least two successful agentic products. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we don't know if they're successful. We don't even, agentic isn't necessarily working yet. There's a lot of human in the loop. So what do you mean by that? So we're seeing kind of silly stuff like that. So
Hmm.
the skilled recruiter and the reasonable hiring manager have a conversation about that. It's like, okay, let's back up a little bit and let's talk about what problem are you trying to solve?
Mm-hmm.
What are you building, and what do you need to get done in the next 30, 60, or 90 days? And what are the kind of, let's talk a little bit about like the skills and the coding skills and maybe the interest that a person has to solve this particular problem. Let's go at it from that point of view. And
Mm-hmm.
let's look at maybe companies that, have solved similar problems, but maybe not quite solved like this magical problem that nobody solved yet. So that's one version, and it's constant. The other one, Tom, is um, salespeople, okay? SDRs, account executives, you know, for early stage companies, and at least in our portfolio, we need five AEs, we need 10 AEs.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that great AEs in one scenario selling maybe to developer tools to engineers is not going to be a great AE selling an enterprise software product to in fintech. Okay, so you have to really distinguish what version of that AE is going to work for your situation. Top down, PLG, where are they getting their leads? What is working for you now? A lot of companies can't answer this, or they don't think about it. They just think, I need a salesperson. I need to plug them in, and they're gonna we're gonna give them a quota, and if it's a numbers game, and we're gonna give them some software, and it's like, no. So that's hard. But then the other part of this, Tom, is there is no time to waste. Once you start talking to anybody right now that's in demand, salespeople in particular, they're extremely transient, meaning they have an expiration date. Their shelf life is about a week. What I mean by that is once they're on the market, that they're off the market within a week. And so if you're not ready to push them, if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, and you can't describe it, and you can't evaluate that person quickly, and you can't turn this process around fast and make a decision, you might as well not even start talking to these people, because 10 or 20 other companies are right behind you, or right in front of you, or right next to you, and you're the tortoise and they're the hare. And so you really have to have all your ducks in a row and be ready to go. And if you're doing this for three software salespeople, or 10 or 20, doesn't matter. So you got to move really fast. And the bigger the number, the more organized you have to be. And that's hard. That's really hard. And the more barriers you put up, obviously you're going to have more fallout. And then just hope they show up for the job, right? Because they might get 10 other opportunities between the day you hire them and the day that they start. And these are amazing people. They have a lot of opportunities, and they're opportunistic. They're mercenaries. They're, no offense to anybody, actually consider it a compliment. But if you're in sales, you are there to make money. You're there to meet quota. You get your bonuses. And if they're not getting that fast enough, either by starting with you, or you have a good story and you have a good trajectory, it's easy for them to get distracted and end up just not even starting with you if something better comes along. So there's a lot involved with that. So those are hard.
Yeah, you bring up SDRs. It relates to a conversation I was having with my undergrad alma mater, and they were talking about how a lot of seniors are looking to break into product management, and I was letting them know that this is not the ideal market to be a associate product manager, or to get an entry level product management job. There's just not as many PM teams that are growing sufficiently, or are promoting people such that they need to kind of refresh those entry level folks. But what I have said is that, you should, if you're thinking about product management long term, getting some experience in sales and account management could be really helpful. And I'm curious, Shannon, what is your take on like entry level SDRs? Like, what do you look for when you want to take a chance on someone who hasn't done sales before, but they're really smart and they're great communicators and they got the fire in the belly. Any advice for those folks earlier in their career?
So you're asking about engineers.
I'm asking about people who wanted to be product managers, but maybe are open to exploring an account management or sales role as their first job out of college.
First, or after I kind of give you my opinion on this, I'd love to understand your perspective on why this is true, right? Like, why is it harder to get a job in product manager? The best product managers are very well rounded,
Mm-hmm.
And this is more and more as a technical world. Everybody needs to have the ability to code a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that cross-pollinating disciplines and getting a wider range of views on how things are built, how companies work, how relationships and cross-matrix things work, the better. So I honestly, I think that there should be some kind of a rotation program or some sort of a program where software engineers are also taking product management roles, and they're also in getting involved in sales, internships and things like that. In fact, UW, the University of Washington here in Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
has the most amazing sales. What I think they call it entrepreneurial sales or something. It's I think it's for only juniors and seniors, possibly only seniors from any discipline are invited to do a semester learning sales strategy, learning sales tactics, understanding how buying decisions are made, understanding buyers versus users and how all that works. And they also then are guaranteed an internship in a sales role. That might mean they're dialing for dollars. It might mean something else, but you get a software engineer that finishes off their kind of their educational career doing an internship in sales. They come out of the other end of that way more marketable, way more successful. And then the interesting thing is some of these people love it so much that they actually pursue the sales route, or they get full-time roles in the internships that they get. Like in fact, HighSpot, which is a local company, actually one of our portfolio companies, they hired one of their first salespeople out of this program. They're like, sure, we'll take an intern. We'll take an intern. She's been with the company for 10 years, and she's
Wow.
a VP there, or maybe she's the CRO now. And she has hired so many people from this program, and a lot of the people are cross discipline. So it's pretty cool. The other thing is there's a new job that's being created right now called a customer facing engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I call the new product manager. Orange is the new black. Customer engineers are the new product managers. And
Wow.
this is something for people to take a very close look at, because what's happening with AI and all of these tools that are available to us is there's less need for all these different people to translate, right, what a customer wants to what we can actually build. So customer engineer is a really interesting new category of jobs I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's hard to be a product manager now? Like, what's going on? What is going on with that?
Oh, I mean, I think with all of the layoffs, there's just a ton of product talent floating around.
Yeah.
Secondly, where there was a time for most of my career where the only question for next year was, well, what's our increase in our PM budget? Like, are we going to grow by 20% or 30%? And I think a lot of PM teams are being asked, hey, you need to do more with less.
Yeah.
And you do need to grow the top line and user numbers by 30%, but the team needs to stay the same size. A part of it is because the team should be more productive with AI tools. I think the other part of it is that if there is a headcount, when there used to be a time you might get 10, 20 credible candidates. Like you can see 50 to 100 credible candidates for a role,
Yeah.
sometimes more.
Yeah.
So I just asked ChatGPT, and it sort of confirmed that the number of open PM roles now versus, let's say, 2022 or 2021 is much lower. However, the other thing is that people who are in PM roles, they're not changing as much. And I'm speaking more on big tech, where I do a lot of career coaching for people, particularly PMs. And
Yeah.
many of the folks in FANG PM jobs feel stuck, that there's no internal mobility because no new internal roles are opening up. So they can't leave. And then it creates everybody kind of like in place. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then if there is a role that opens up, there's a ton of internal candidates. So the external
Mm-hmm.
candidates, it's kind of like the devil you don't know. I'm sure like the pendulum will swing. But right now, I think it is tougher for folks that, especially people who are coming out of undergrad that have never worked in product, maybe had an internship or something, to get a
Yeah.
full-time role. It can be tough, especially because the APM activities are very much like, oh, they are the ones that we used to ask to take the notes at the meeting. They were the
Yeah.
ones that we would ask to do some competitive research. They were the ones that we would ask to summarize the UXR report and translate how that impacts the roadmap. Like, you don't need an army of APMs to do that anymore.
No.
So that's
No.
what I have heard. I was talking to someone who's graduating from Pomona, and he's a CS major. And I was like, oh, what are you going to do next year? And he's like, oh, I'm going to do like a solutions engineer for Pinecone or something like that.
Yeah. Like that's cool.
Yeah. So I think that's a good one. And it's great to see UW doing sales kind of education and
Oh,
training.
yeah.
Because,
It's
yeah,
amazing.
for a long time, even when I was getting my MBA, like sales was considered like, I don't know, maybe not as highbrow
Oh,
and
yeah.
intellectually,
Totally.
kind of like high finance or strategy or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I think given that we work with a lot of startups, we all know like if that is one of the most crucial skills a founder needs to have, as well as their company. If you
That's right.
can't sell,
It's
you're
so
screwed.
true. I mean, we just can't emphasize enough. Like sales has got such a bad rap, but if you want to be a founder of a company, you have to
Hmm.
be an amazing salesperson. And I'm not talking about like, smarmy, which is what people think about with sales, unfortunately. It's the ability to listen, understand, and then explain how your product solves the problem in
Hmm.
an authentic way, right? And that's, if you can't do that, you can't be a founder. Like we do not invest in founders that can't do that. By the way, I'll send you the link for the UW sales program
Yeah,
because yeah, remind
it's
me
in
to
the
send that
description.
to you.
Yeah,
Jim Hawks is
that
Jim
sounds
Hawks
amazing.
is the guy. So anyway, that I guess that's how I feel about it. I think people need to be
Yeah.
really well rounded. Also, I just wanted to tell you I was looking in our portfolio at the Madrona website. You can go to the jobs in our portfolio page,
Hmm.
and there are 600 and something careers posted there right now. Well,
Hmm.
the interesting thing, to back up what you said, there are around 60 product manager roles,
Hmm.
but only 13 of them are mid-level and below,
Yeah.
and only one of them is entry level or internship level. So this, what you're saying, is validated by my anecdotal data of we have a
Hmm.
portfolio of 130 companies, so it's a decent data set. So what you're saying is resonating, and I've seen this trend over the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what's happening is, I'm just pulling up the Madrona
Yeah,
portco.
there you go.
Like,
Hmm.
they're basically gonna, like, Humulo is basically gonna say, hey, we don't need like a basic product marketing manager. You, senior product marketing manager, you do that stuff and just use AI to kind of augment your capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I think right now, if you're like mid-level, it's a great time because you can use AI because you have the actual experience, you've seen it done the old way, and now you can use AI to kind of accelerate. But if you're coming out of college right now,
Yeah.
I worry about those folks for two reasons. One is there aren't as many roles, but two is they may not get the opportunity to learn, like, how do you write a PRD from scratch?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they'll just put it in a prompt and then to take something that ChatGPT gives them, but which is, amazing and magical, but it's not the same as kind of doing it yourself and developing kind of like those core muscles.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that happens.
Tom, I think the distinction here too is when you don't have any experience, you haven't developed taste and you haven't developed judgment.
Yeah.
And so you can throw something into ChatGPT, and so can I, and we can both get the exact same output. Let's say you and me. That's a pretty good example because I would be an example of an entry level product manager. But I have no context for understanding the quality of that output. And instead of thinking that is a starting point for me, that sort of feels like an ending point. Whereas it may not even be your starting point. It may be where you do some work and then you plug it in there and you use ChatGPT to kind of help you as a brainstorming friend, right? A buddy. I've done it both. I've tried this myself. Like we write a blog called Hooked by Madrona, and each time we write it's hooked on a particular topic. It's founder focused, etc. So hooked on role specs, hooked on hiring, unpacking sales hiring mysteries, things like that. And we write this from our brains onto paper starting 2 years ago. Well, ChatGPT came along and I'm like, that's cool. I can feed all the past ones in here and I can have like tune it up and make my own build, my own LLM, and it can pop out stuff. But the truth is that I have worked harder to fix the crap that comes out of ChatGPT than if I just write it myself and then
Yeah.
have ChatGPT help me like smooth out this thing, or somebody
Yeah.
gave me some feedback that this didn't make sense, help me make it make sense. But if I didn't have all the years of experience in the field doing this work, I would be happy with what ChatGPT gave me. I wouldn't have the taste and the judgment. And that's a distinction. And that's why we're not seeing, I believe, as many entry level roles. And we're seeing more like senior and principal level roles. And I just don't, what I worry about is how are these early career people going to get the mentorship? I worry about that a lot.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I got two kids in high school and they're using it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, it's kind of good that it's helping you, but I also worry that, it's sort of like people who've never driven a car without GPS. And
Yeah.
they just have
Yeah.
no sense of direct. They can't read a map, and they don't have a sense of like landmarks, and you
Hmm.
know, kind of like they need GPS to go to like their grocery store, And so it's
Right.
great, it works, but if you drop someone in an unfamiliar environment and say figure out how to get back, they might struggle. And similarly for a
Yeah.
PM, if it's like, well, everyone can write a prompt, but the superpower is people who've done it before being able to say, okay, the output is good, but there's some weird
Yeah.
stuff in here. And then you say to
Hmm.
ChatGPT, like, this doesn't make sense. And then of course it's like, oh, that's right. Thank you for pointing that out. Let me fix it. But if the person doesn't have that judgment, that kind of like intuition for what looks a little weird or what's missing,
Hmm.
Yeah, that'll be an issue, and I'm sure we will need to figure out how to teach people fundamentals again, because it's kind of like giving third graders a calculator. Like they need to learn math, a little bit
Yes.
for that.
I think we're definitely, that's kind of where this whole retro thing that I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like referenced in the post that I wrote that got us started on this
Yeah.
conversation is, this is all fun. This is cool. This is a 2 year like woohoo ice cream party. But I think eventually we're going to have to stop letting Chat GPT be our thinker,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to have to start thinking for ourselves again, or we're literally going to lose that ability. And I see it in myself already. I
Yeah.
can literally see it in myself. I'm like, okay, I can't let myself do that. But your example about the GPS, I was in the car with somebody who's sort of millennial,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't say who they are because I love them and I don't want to embarrass them, but they were trying to get from one part of the neighborhood to another part of the neighborhood that they've been in many times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they put on the GPS because they were lost, literally. And it
Mm-hmm.
was 6 or 7 blocks away. And I'm thinking, it's not them. It's just how we are. We don't have context. We can't get a people need to learn to pull up at a 10,000 foot
Yeah.
and look around and look at the map and go, oh, I'm headed toward Los Angeles when I thought I was headed toward New
Mhm.
York. Like, oops, I got to get my compass out. Like, we just don't have compasses, are kind of becoming this quaint little thing of the past, like
Yeah.
thinking for ourselves. So yeah, it's a little interesting, but you know,
Yeah, we're living through a historic time. Maybe one last question I'll ask you, Shannon, before I let you go is, what do you still see a role for executive search and recruiting firms, or do you think all of these new tools that you mentioned will allow DIY recruiting to be all we need?
well, my answer on this evolves on a daily basis, but the short answer is no. There's not going to You're not going to be able to replace the taste and judgment that good recruiters and good hiring managers have about hiring, because we're still
Mm.
dealing with people. It's not like two until we get to the point where two avatars are working together and they don't need us. I just think you're still going to need that human in the loop to help
Mhm.
drive the process. And also, let's face it, when you're hiring one person, it's great. You log on to Juicebox, you source some candidates, you reach out to them, you go through the process and you hire one, because that's all you're doing. You're just hiring one and you can devote all of your time. When you start to scale that, and you need to like have speed, quality, and cost considerations, you can't just outsource that and hope that, hey, the bot will take care of it. We're
Mhm.
not there yet. And this taste and judgment thing, I think absolutely it comes back to it. In the meantime, people are trying to do it without the human in the loop. So there's going to be a lot of learnings and a lot of pain. And we're going to see recruiting kind of go, oh, I don't need recruiters. I can do it myself. And then things are going to break. Bad hires are going to be made. Companies are going to scale, and they're going to need to like have somebody that can come in and orchestrate it. So I think of recruiters as the orchestration layer. Um, so do I need to go out and spend my entire weekend sourcing on LinkedIn using keywords anymore? No. Do I need to understand jobs and get inside the head of the founder and build great searches and understand what great looks like and the various permutations of that so I can help the AI get me where I want to go really fast? I have to be able to do that. But the manpower that I used to use on the weekend to do sourcing, I'm
Mhm.
going to use that manpower to now uh, help candidates get interviewed better,
Yeah.
creating better candidate experience, and going super effing fast. Like, that's where my time is going to be, is like I got to put on my track shoes, and then managing costs, because the cost of AI agentic recruiting tools is going to skyrocket. Okay, we're going to see surge pricing, just like we do with Uber or whatever.
Mm.
Okay, so yeah, it's free and cheap right now, but anything that has value, people will pay for, and prices will go up. So yeah, it's just a matter of time. So you're still going to need people. Do you need people all the time? No. Should you need people all the time now? No. So I think it'll ultimately be the same, but I don't know, recruiting is just getting a lot more fun because we can focus on, instead of, interviewing 20 candidates for a role, maybe we interview 5 great candidates for a role. We have a really deep and meaningful interview process so we get evidence that the candidate can do the job and give the candidate evidence that they want to do the job. And that is much better time spent because those candidates will be more sticky, and that makes it all worth it. So I just think the way that it's done will change. But if AI could replace recruiting and I could just push a button and go sit on the beach, hell yeah, bring it on. That would be amazing. But I just don't think it's just too clunky. It's like hiring managers right now are starting to expect an Amazon shopping experience. I'm going to
Mm.
go and I'm going to do a
Right.
natural language search for, bunion pads, and I'm going to get all these selections. I'm going to say, oh, I want one for the left foot. This is a weird example, but I'm known for weird examples. And I want one for the pinky toe, blah, blah, blah. So you get all these, and then you read the reviews and you pick a few and you put them in your shopping cart, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to order all 3 of these, but I know I can return the ones that don't work. Hit the button. They show up on your door the next day, and you try them on, and then you send back the ones you don't want. I believe hiring managers are starting to get a sense that that's the experience they would like with hiring. They would
Mm.
like to just go to a shopping cart, go to a juice box, go to a Find 'em, go to a SeekOut, go to whatever tools, hire easy. There's a few others, and they just want to load up the shopping cart, have all this stuff happen, and then the people show up for work, and then you fire the ones at the end of the week that don't work out. Now, that last part's a little harsh,
Mm.
but I think the rest of it is kind of what people kind of sort of want and are kind of a little bit expecting it. And when they try to make that happen, maybe execute and do it that way, they're going to find out that there's a little bit of pain involved in that. Or they'll find that that's just not possible. Like, you can't just fill your cart and have these people show up on the doorstep on Monday morning. So there will be disappointments and pain along the way. But maybe eventually we can get to a place where the experience looks like that for parts of it. And I think we're kind of approaching that now. It's like, fill the shopping cart, do the outreach, see what nets, that kind of thing. So I don't know. We'll see. But I kind of like the shopping cart idea. We're humans, not
Yeah,
things.
I'm with you on that analogy all the way up until the point where the hiring manager, it sounds like you were painting a picture where there was one scenario where the hiring manager is knowingly bringing more people than they might need with
Yeah.
the expectation that, within a week or two, a couple of them will wash out. And to me, that feels kind of disruptive for the company culture, but also not the best candidate experience. It's like, well, why did we bring them in if we didn't think they could do the job?
Yeah. Well, hiring is already done this way in very high volume, low skill jobs like call
Mhm.
center,
Yeah.
for certain kinds of call centers, or you name it. So that's already by design kind of thing. By design, you hire a class of 30 call center people
Yeah.
that meet your minimum requirements, and they pass your screen, and that 15 to 20 of them will wash out by the end of the week, and then you net whatever 10.
Mhm.
And that's like by design. So that's already something that works and is understood. There's another version of this where you try before you buy, right? So you
Mhm.
hire a software engineer on a contract. We're talking about more highly skilled roles now,
Yeah.
but hire a software engineer on contract. And at the end of the 30 days, if we love each other, we'll do it. And if we don't, we won't. Or then this other version of that's what's happening, but it's not being communicated explicitly, right?
Mm.
And so I'm not saying there's any companies in our portfolio do that, but I know that that is happening. I know that that's happening, and probably at the larger, another company that's famous for this, at least they used to be, is Meta. They would hire, a class of engineers, so to speak. We're talking about like highly vetted, highly skilled,
Mhm.
and then they would go through a boot camp. As I remember it, as I remember hearing about it from an engineer, and in that boot camp, I think that's what they call it. Some of them fall out, and part of that boot camp or part of the onboarding is you kind of audition for different teams, and I don't know how
Mhm.
that works exactly, but you may not get picked for a team. It's kind of like a sports thing. You may not get picked,
Mm.
and or you may pick three teams and the ones that you pick don't want you, but a fourth team wants you, or five teams want you, and then they fight over you and you get to pick. So there's variations of that all through the history of software companies. So it's just that those are more explicitly understood, where the ones that are less understood is where in the back of the mind the company's going, yeah, I mean, you've heard of hire slow and fire fast.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I think we're kind of moving into a hire fast and fire fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, certainly in the product management sphere, I've always seen hire slow,
Mm-hmm. Me
and in
too.
practice, sometimes fire slow.
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely, like to the detriment of
yeah,
the organization. And I've always been a hire slow, fire fast.
yeah,
But you can't hire slow anymore, and you
mhm,
can't fire slow either. You have to
yeah.
hire
You
fast
definitely
and
cannot
fire
fire slow.
fast.
Yeah,
And if you build this into your design, whether you're explicit about it or not, AI kind of can make that happen. So it's just like one of those potentially unintended consequences that I sort of just see that. So anyway, we could
Shannon,
go on and on. I
yeah.
love talking about this stuff.
We'll have to. I'm gonna reach out to you 12 months from now, and we'll reflect on what the world
Okay.
looks like, in May of 2026.
Okay. I would love to do that. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and how am I hiring? Like, it took me years and years to develop my methodology for recruiting,
Hmm.
and my methodology has been completely disrupted. And every day I think I've invented my new methodology, but then the tool I'm using to make that methodology works, it changes, and the prompt I wrote yesterday doesn't work today. I'm like, what? It's crazy. So it'll be also interesting to see like have things settled down, because these dynamic products that are changing every day make it really hard to experiment. I need
Yeah.
a static product for just don't upgrade anything for a week so I can figure out how this thing works.
Yeah.
Um, so it'll be interesting to see how, if we've gotten any sense of like, all right, this is the new way to do it, or we're still just inventing it every day. But right now, every day I wake up and I go, I don't know quite how to do this today, and I figure it out.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's exhausting.
It's funny how I think you and I first intersected in Seattle when I was doing Poachable, my
Yeah.
anonymous recruiting
Yes.
startup. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Poachable.
and and part of the premise was like, oh, recruiting is broken, it's totally inefficient. And I still feel it's kind of broken and totally inefficient.
Yeah.
Even with all the great AI tools we have now, it's like, wow, we are really bad at picking the right person for the right job quickly.
See, that right there has so much potential to get better.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah. So we can talk about that another time, but there's a couple of companies, one of them is our portfolio, that's doing some amazing stuff on that. I'm like, I never thought that could be kind of automated, just certain parts of the interview process.
Yeah.
To pick up on things like taste and judgment, that is usually something, so we can talk about that more later. I know we've run out of time, but this has been fun.
I love it. I'm so glad we were able to have this convo, and thanks for doing that post. And it looks like, let me show everybody. This is the Hooked Substack. It's
Yes,
hooked by madrona.substack.com.
that's right.
And then they should follow you on LinkedIn, of course.
Yes.
And Shannon Anderson, that you're also in the, I think I put a link to your LinkedIn
Yeah,
in the
that's me
description.
right there.
Any other ways that they should keep in touch with you, or any other things you want to kind of make the audience aware of before we wrap up?
I don't know. I think we've covered it. I mean, you've got my how to keep in touch with me, how to follow me. The hooked on Madrona is the best way. I just want to say one of the things that my team always says is always be recruiting,
Mm-hmm.
and that's never been more true than now. We've always got to be like, I always think of every interaction I have with somebody, whether it's you or a candidate or a hiring manager, is an audition for my next interaction with them, whether I will have a next interaction with them. And in my recruiting hat, I'm always recruiting. I'm sitting next to somebody and I'm thinking about how can I start a conversation with them that could develop into a relationship that over time, maybe this person is a key hire at one of our companies, or maybe they've found a company. But I'm always telling our hiring managers and founders and product leaders and engineering leaders, recruiting is not a faucet that you turn on and off. It's a
Yeah.
constant, always. We've got a couple of posts in Hooked about that, but that I'd say that that's a mantra that my team has. We have T-shirts with it. We have stickers. Always be recruiting, and you are who you hire. And that's the other thing is, if you think about it, you are the total sum of the 5 people that you hang around with the most, right? And so you are who you hire. If you hire a bunch of bozos, you're kind of going to be a bozo. If you hire people that make you smarter and can do all the things better than you and you can learn from, then you're going to be smarter and smarter and smarter. And so I always think about that as well.
Great advice, Shannon. I love
Yes.
it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
All right, Tom, I'll talk to you again soon.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right. That was Shannon Anderson, talent scout at Madrona Ventures. Madrona is kind of the preeminent venture capital firm in Seattle, and now has an office in Palo Alto. So they're doing some Bay Area stuff as well. So if you want to check out what jobs are available from them, you can go to jobs.madrona.com. Some takeaways from my convo with Shannon. I think number one is if you are a hiring manager or job seeker, you could try LinkedIn, but there's a lot of noise that's probably going to make the matching process between a really great candidate and that role a little bit harder, because there's just this like sea of kind of AI enhanced applications. I think the second thing that Shannon talked about was in her post was, and we didn't get to touch on it in the interview, was how important old-fashioned referrals from people that you've worked with and people that you know, like, kind of carries the day. So if you're looking at a role and you're like, oh my God, there's 1,000 applicants. If you know someone that works at that company, you can immediately jump to a level of consideration, in the top 10, top 20 list that would be harder to do than by kind of stuffing keywords and stuff into your resume. So that's second thing is how important it is to, I'll share her post again here because I thought it was really well written. Referrals reign supreme. Warm intros from trusted networks. Slice through AI noise like butter. That sounds like it might have been written by AI. I don't know, but I think the insight is definitely real. And then I think the third takeaway is whatever you do as a leader or a person who wants to kind of be the best version of yourself at work, make sure you have really solid fundamentals. As awesome as AI is, treat it more like an intern than your brain. Like, you've got to do the synthesis and the work. It can do the grunt work for you, but you've got to guide it. These like one-shot prompts where you're like, write a PRD for this product is just way less effective than here's at least 4 or 5 paragraphs of my PRD. Can you critique it? Can you improve it? Can you make it clearer? Can you call out things that are missing or inconsistent? Then the AI can be amazing for you. And then think of that AI kind of co-composition process as an iterative one. So you write the 5 paragraphs, it critiques it, you then expand it to 8 paragraphs, it critiques it, you ask some questions, it proposes the 9th paragraph. Do it that way. But if you're in a position where you're like, I don't know, man, I just give it a prompt and I take what it gives me, and I'm not able to critique it, and I'm not able to catch when ChatGPT kind of gets lost or hallucinates or is inconsistent or makes stuff up or is just wrong and misses things, then that's going to show up at work. And at the end of the day, whether you're a PM that loves AI or not, we're all judged by measurable outcomes and results. And the only way we can produce the best results is to produce the best products that delight customers the most and that scale. And, you might be able to write a PRD and write a roadmap and come up with some plausible OKRs, but the real craft, I think, requires that judgment that Shannon talked about. And if you're earlier in your career, I think the best thing you can do, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't use AI. Of course you should. You kind of have to. But find a mentor that you can work with, that you can kind of learn the nuances and observe, and hopefully they can model like really good PM judgment and give you a lot of opportunities and experience. So hopefully that's useful. If you like this conversation, go check out my Substack, because all of these interviews, I post them later, and then I have a text summary, which, surprise, it is written by AI, but it's based on the transcript of the interview. And as you could tell, Shannon and I are both humans, at least as far as it looks. So check out my Substack. And then if you need any exec coaching, you can look me up, tomleungcoaching.com. All right, team, let's get back to work. Bye.